John Harbaugh gave another update on the status of Lamar Jackson. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. We're here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we have a lot to dive into. Obviously, the Ravens just finished up their preseason season against the Commanders in week number 3. Going to be diving into that game as well as the roster in general. But in the first part of the show, John Harbaugh gave an update on Lamar Jackson, and decently definitive one. So we'll talk about that, as well as he weighed in on the roster decisions the Ravens are going to have to make here over the next couple of days. And then we're going to dive into a little bit of a roster evaluation on the show as well. Appreciate everybody who is here with me today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And also thank you out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We're here for you, your daily dose of Ravens content. So let's just dive right into it here. Lamar Jackson, we know, had his foot stepped on, according to the Ravens, on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday, and that kind of caused everybody to go into a frenzy. John Harbaugh gave an update on Lamar, said the x-rays were negative the whole 9 yards. Adam Schefter then was like, that was a little more serious, apparently, because Harbaugh wouldn't have had to pray. He said his prayers were answered. And then Lamar laughed at him about that. So what was this whole situation? If you want to go back, and we did an episode with Cordell Woodland of 105.7 The Fan on Friday, if you want to listen to the whole ordeal there. But after the preseason game between the Ravens and the Commanders, John Harbaugh was asked by Cordell about Lamar's status. And the question was, do you expect Lamar Jackson to practice on Monday? And John Harbaugh gave a little sly answer. And I mean sly in like a good way. I know that sly sometimes gets like this negative connotation. I don't mean it that way. I mean it in like a clever way-ish. It's almost like a funny answer. He said, yes, absolutely, unless Lamar doesn't want to. So he said he is Lamar. So clearly the good thing here is that the Ravens, John Harbaugh, very confident in Lamar Jackson's ability to go back out there and practice tomorrow. Now, if he doesn't go out there and practice tomorrow and John Harbaugh gave this answer, that's going to, I think, cause a whole nother level of controversy, because we do know the Ravens have not been particularly strong at times when it comes to providing the correct injury information on certain players. So, look, for me, it's a non-story at this point. Like, if Lamar practices, obviously, like it's done, it's over with. We didn't really have a lot of clarity in the first place, so that's when it was a story. But Lamar was seen walking out to the field. He was in good spirits. There were multiple updates, videos, the whole 9 yards. Lamar looked fine. I want to say this. Lamar looks fine. If it's something bigger, something else is going on, well, probably know about it on Monday if he doesn't practice tomorrow. But good thing here. And again, I guess if Lamar doesn't want to, hey, good to know. We already know Lamar has this status that, he can go out there or he can practice if he doesn't want to. No, of course he's going to practice. Of course he is going to be out there with his teammates. So that, to me, officially kind of puts to rest this entire situation. It was an exhausting couple of days when it came to talking about that. And obviously, look, and Cordell talked about this with us on Friday. When a quarterback or a player of Lamar Jackson's stature goes down, and it's like a couple weeks before the season, you're trying to finalize your roster, you're just about to get into the meaningful action. Yeah, of course it's going to be a story there. But I'm glad to kind of put that in the rearview mirror. Again, if he practices, it will officially be in the rear. I guess we're like 99% out of the woods here with this answer from Harbaugh. I know that some people do not trust John Harbaugh on his injury updates, but I'm going to choose to put the faith in John Harbaugh here. I'm going to say Lamar will practice, and I believe him. And that will be the situation. Look, we know if something happens to Lamar Jackson, it's going to be Cooper Rush's show. And, kind of diving into that situation where if this injury was a little bit worse, and obviously, knock on wood, it was not the case, clearly, at least from these updates we're getting here, it would have been Cooper Rush going out there and performing. Cooper Rush on Saturday, against the Commanders, went 5 of 5 for 59 yards, 11.8 yards per pass. Solid day for Cooper, nothing too crazy, but nothing negative as well. I think he really has improved from that first week. And I feel a little better about him as the backup than I did after week 1. And you might be saying, yeah, duh, Kevin. But, Cooper is a high-level backup. Still, the offensive system, to me, the offensive fit, Kadri Ismail and I have talked about this, former Ravens receiver, it's a little weird. It's a weird offensive fit, at least in some circumstances. But we've seen him carry Dallas to wins before. Like, it's not, it wouldn't be shocking for Cooper to go in there if Lamar had to miss any time. And again, knock on wood, we're knocking on the wood, does not happen. But I thought he showed a little bit more poise, a little bit more calm, cool, and collectiveness, was being a little mobile outside the pocket. Not that he's Lamar Jackson, obviously, but showed a little shake and bake on some plays. I mean, I think over the course of the second and third weeks of the preseason, he has given me a little more confidence in him as a backup. Although obviously I'm not like at the tippy top of the confidence mountain with Cooper Rush. I still certainly have some reservations, but I'm glad I feel better than I did a couple weeks ago. Devin Leary, on the other hand, I think the Ravens, and you talk about the roster and like, oh, if Lamar has to do this or, keep him healthy. Well, Devin Leary, I don't think makes this roster at all. I don't think, at this point, the practice squad even is up in the air. I feel like he does have the edge for the practice squad because of the fact that, at this point, he knows the plays. He's been there for now a year in that system. So I guess if it's a Josh Johnson or a Tyler Huntley that gets cut and they bring them back, maybe they have the advantage there. But the key is just going to be for Lamar staying healthy for the entire season. The Ravens have been very lucky injury-wise the past 2 seasons. And we know that no team in the AFC North has ever won 3 years in a row. Now, I'm not implying that because that happens, the Ravens are all of a sudden going to be the super injured team this season. I'm definitely not saying that. But we know that the Ravens have a lot of depth. They can account for a lot of injuries. They can essentially break the fall of losing a guy because they have a lot of depth. But Lamar is the only player, maybe Kyle Hamilton, that differs for. Where there's just not a Lamar guy you can put out there and feel confident, especially with the drop-off from Lamar to a Cooper Rush. Like, we all know that. We all know that situation. So, again, in terms of his injury or him being hurt and a guy stepping on him or whatnot, we are never going to know who stepped on Lamar. Like, they are going to protect that secret. They are not. And again, people who were there and Cordell, Q, they talked about this. They were both out there at Owings Mills. We talked to both of them last week. They were far away from the play. There were a bunch of offensive linemen. That was their perspective. They couldn't see. And then they were watching the ball after the fact. They were watching where the ball went. And so whether it was an offensive lineman, I know a lot of people like to say it was Falele. That's not confirmed anywhere. I think people have been spreading that rumor around. It has not been confirmed by anyone that whoever it was stepped on Lamar Jackson. We are not going to know that information. So that's another thing. I was like, and honestly, is it really that important? Like, someone stepped on Lamar. I mean, it is what it is. Could have been Mike Green for all we know. Could have been a defender. Like, it was weird at first because I think of the, mysteriosity of it. If that's not a word, now it is. I just made it up right now on the spot. But the mysterious nature of the word or of the situation, I think at this point, you just got to play it a little safe. And I wouldn't have blamed him, by the way. Like, obviously, Harbaugh's expecting Lamar to practice here tomorrow, but I wouldn't have blamed them if they just kind of kept him on ice for a couple of days. I know that would have concerned people, and the worry level would have just like skyrocketed to the moon. But man, who cares? Just let Cooper take the 1 reps if he needs them. Not that he needs them from like a veteran perspective, but just to get more acclimated with the offense. I'm fine. I would have been fine with that. But obviously, the best case scenario was Lamar going out there and practicing on Monday, and that is hopefully what we are going to get tomorrow. But of course, we're going to have to see. So the quarterback situation in Baltimore, obviously, it rides on Lamar Jackson. We know that. Cooper Rush showed better play in the second and third preseason games than in the first one. Devin Leary, I mean, he also was better in the second and third games than he was in the first, but, still didn't. I mean, in this game, just for context, and the Ravens weren't asking him to do a ton in this game. They wanted to get out of there. But 3.1 yards per attempt for Devin Leary, 17 of 23 for 71 yards. So, yeah, Leary's not making the roster. But if I had to guess, I think that he will be the practice squad quarterback. Is that my preference? Probably not. But, I mean, I guess I understand it from a he knows the plays perspective. But good update from John Harbaugh on Lamar Jackson. I think that's what everybody wanted to hear. Lamar back at practice. Hopefully, this is the only situation that we have to talk about with Lamar in an injury season. He might have his yearly upset stomach or sickness or whatever he gets. But again, injury-wise, health-wise, hopefully Lamar can make it another year with relatively good health. And honestly, hopefully perfect health for Lamar. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, obviously, the Ravens now turn their attention to their roster, and John Harbaugh weighed in on a couple of players on the roster bubble and a couple of tough decisions the Ravens have to make. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And one of my favorite features are the new Guillotine Leagues they just dropped, and every week the lowest scoring teams eliminated, and the last one standing wins. Whether you're all in on something new or like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo's got you covered. Celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness. Yahoo Fantasy's dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. Kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, including a new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. The season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Rolling along here on Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking Ravens football with you. Again, appreciate everybody and all the support. We are a 5-day-a-week Ravens podcast. Monday through Friday is our regularly scheduled content. We also have Locked On Ravens watch-alongs now, where we will watch along and react live to every single game during the game, play-by-play. Those have been incredible during the preseason. Really excited to ramp those up during the regular season. We have instant reaction episodes after the games. We had that yesterday. Locked On Ravens Squad Show twice a week. Myself, Sebin Joku, former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail. We just have all the content. Bonus episodes on the weekends like this one, or the one we did yesterday on Micah Parsons, potentially in the Ravens, that whole situation. If you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so. Tell the friend, tell the family member if they want daily Ravens coverage. We have them covered just like we have you covered over here on Locked On Ravens. Now, John Harbaugh did not just give an injury update on Lamar Jackson. There were obviously a lot of other conversations that he had and a lot of other answers that he gave, and a lot of them had to do with the roster, because that is cut down days on Tuesday. And with this Ravens team, by the way, I just want to get everybody prepared for this. So hopefully they do it differently and they release it on time. But the Ravens the past handful of years have released the roster like 4 hours late. 4 hours. And the reason they do that is because the waiver period is the next day, and they want every little advantage they can. And they want teams to know who they cut for as little time as possible while they go through that process and think of guys they want to add. So that, to me, is that reason. Now, again, you hope they'll release it on time, or at least closer than they have in the past, but I'm not necessarily banking on that. But the Ravens roster, a lot of guys that can play, a lot of guys that deserve spots, but only 53 can make it. Now, Harbaugh was asked about the Rashid Ali situation. Obviously, in Dallas, Harbaugh made it pretty clear that they want to keep 4 running backs. And Harbaugh was asked about Ali again after this game. And Harbaugh said he would be a depth running back, obviously, but he's proven himself to be a good back in the preseason. Then he's a big part of special teams right now. He's starting on every special team, so something would have to change for that not to be the case. So, yes, he's a part of our dynamic kickoff return plan. He's on the punt team. He's on the punt return team. He's on the kickoff team, so he's a big part of that right now. This, to me, signals about as locked into a roster spot as you can get on a John Harbaugh-led team, especially John Harbaugh Ravens-led team, because where was John Harbaugh before Baltimore? Philadelphia. What was John Harbaugh's role in Philadelphia? Special teams coach. We know that the Ravens value special teams. If you can play special teams, your chances skyrocket to go and make an impact and be on the Ravens roster. I still think 4 running backs is a little too many running backs. 3 is kind of my sweet spot there, especially with a lot of the guys that are vying for roster spots, and you're probably going to have to let a couple of them go and subject them to waivers and hope they pass through. 4 running backs is a lot, but Ali's earned it. He played really well in the Washington game. I thought he was playing with explosiveness. His final stat line on the day, 9 carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. Plus, he was really involved as a receiver. He actually led the Ravens in catches, 5. He only had 16 yards on those catches, including a 13-yard long where he actually ran that ball a little bit. But again, like, he was involved. And like, the offensive game plan was a lot of screens, a lot of handoffs. So like, it wasn't, the Ravens were trying to get out of there, and the Commanders were too. It was a lot of, hey, let's just wrap up this preseason and move along here. But look, this to me indicates Rasheen Ali will be on the Ravens' final 53-man roster. John Harbaugh, essentially, in my opinion, cementing Ali's spot on that roster. He also talked about Ruben Lowry a little bit. You know, he was asked if he's seen enough of Ruben Lowry. He was asked about the chances of him on the roster. He said, quote, "I do. I think you're probably going to put more guys in that category that you're talking about that can make the team, though. I think he's definitely in that category, and that'll be one of the decisions that we'll have to make." He did it again today and played really well. And he also talked about both Sanusi Kane and Bo Braid and the safety depth situation. You know, obviously, you mentioned Kyle Hamilton and then Kane, Braid, Ruben Lowry as well. He feels really good about that safety room. I think Lowry, and you can tell in these preseason games in just by playing time. And I said this on the watch along, said this on the instant reaction, even said it on the squad show. I said it everywhere I could. I look into the playing time here. When guys are playing, for a guy like Bo Braid, for example, and Harbaugh obviously didn't outright say, "Oh, Bo Braid is not going to make," no, like, he's confident in a Bo Braid. I think, to me, Bo Braid does not make this roster because he was playing till the end of this game at the nickel spot. Ruben Lowry was taken out of this game. When you take a guy out of a game, it's either their time is up and another guy gets in there, or they've seen enough and they feel confident in you on the roster. I think we saw that with Ruben Lowry in this game. And I think Bo Braid still being on the field was kind of telling, especially late. And, you know, I like Bo Braid a lot. I think he will be a good member on the practice squad. I don't think he makes the team. I do not think he makes the team. Harbaugh has been speaking highly of Ruben Lowry forever. Everyone who's been out at training camp has explained, and, you know, people have come on this show and explained how Ruben Lowry just continues to pop at practice, forcing turnovers, being around the ball. That's a guy you do not let go. Now, he also talked a little bit about Keon Martin and the roster decisions that he has to make and the team has to make coming down the pipeline. And he said, quote, "The good problem is when guys play well. That's what you want. You want to see guys play well, and that's what we try to do. That's the goal as a coach. You want to do everything you can to help your guys be successful. That's why we coach, so to see the guys be successful. That's what you want. So that's the problem we want to have." And like I said, it's a good problem to have. And Harbaugh's correct here. Every coach, every team in the league would want to be in the situation the Ravens are in right now. A lot of guys feel confident in 60 guys, like really confident in 60 guys, maybe a little more than that could hypothetically make the roster here. Yeah, you feel good about it. And you'd rather have that than 45 guys in those last 8 spots. You're like, I don't really like that guy. No, you want to make tough decisions. You want to be in a position to make tough decisions. And the Ravens certainly are. And Keon Martin is one of those guys that just absolutely balled out. Harbaugh talked about him specifically and said, you know, quote, "He played well. He keeps making big plays, and that's something that's accounted for sure. I think he played sound as well. He did things the right way. He's played just like that throughout the whole camp." And Jets Rubeck at The Athletic actually, you know, reported and made everybody aware and reminded people that Keon Martin was not initially a part of the Ravens' undrafted free agent class. He actually signed as a rookie during rookie minicamp, the tryouts there. That's how he ended up finding his way to the Ravens. And he's now turned this into, he's done everything he can to earn a roster spot. And that's what he said during his post-game interview. He said he's taken advantage of every opportunity that was thrown his way. I 100% agree with him. I hope he makes the roster. We'll talk a little bit more about some of my updated predictions in the final part of the show, so we'll dive into that a little bit more. But Harbaugh actually also said that he thinks he might have liked the vice block even a little better. He said that was impressive. The whole sideline was fired up for that. We work hard at that. That was impressive. Again, Martin had a pick 6 in this game, multiple big tackles. Like, he was all over the place. All over the place. Now, something Harbaugh also talked about, Trenton Simpson. As I've said, I said it all yesterday, the preseason is not just about guys fighting for roster spots and trying to make the roster. It's also about guys fighting for roles, fighting for starting jobs, fighting for an increased snap count. Trenton Simpson was in the thick of that battle for the spot next to Roquan Smith, the started inside linebacker. I honestly thought that Teddy Buchanan took over that spot last week. But Trenton Simpson ripped that thing right back from him with, honestly, one of the best games I've seen from him is a Raven. And it's not against Jane Daniels and Terry McLaurin and all those guys, but hey, he did what he was supposed to do. He did what he was supposed to do. 6 total tackles on the day, 1.5 sacks. He had 2 quarterback hits. He had a pass defense, which actually was a tip ball that landed in the arms of Jalen Armour Davis. He was everywhere. He was everywhere. And that is exactly what you wanted to see from Trenton Simpson. It gave me a lot more confidence in Trenton Simpson. And John Harbaugh talked about Trenton Simpson and said, quote, Trenton has really made a big step this year. I just feel like the way he's processing the game has been a big step. He's a guy that was an All-American running back in high school. He went to Clemson and was learning to play defense all along, came here. I think he could see that the talent was evident, but this year is really taking a big step in terms of just keeping it simple. Maybe it slowed down. Maybe his brain processes faster, so the game has slowed down just a little bit. He seems like he's very comfortable. That, again, is a ranking endorsement for Trenton Simpson. He earned it. He deserved it. I'm super happy for him. Those are those moments that you got to take advantage of. You know, Trenton was the only starter or presumed starter on defense to play in the game for the Ravens on Sunday or on Saturday. So I think, to me, Trenton did exactly what he was supposed to do. Really pumped that he was able to take advantage of his opportunity. And Tyler Loop also took advantage of his opportunity, by the way. I would be remiss if I didn't mention him here. He was a guy that went 3 for 3 with a 61-yard field goal. Yep, 61 yards. Unreal. He also had a 52-yarder and a 46-yarder. So he was balling out. The confidence was clearly there. I was trying to get Nick Moore, Ravens long snapper, on the squad show. Actually, he reached out to me. I didn't even know he was available to come on the squad show, but we ended up just missing each other. But I read this out on the squad show. Nick passed along a message to me to pass on to everybody. And he said to say that Loop and Jordan crushed the preseason and were locked and loaded for the regular season. So, look, the returns, and I thought Jordan Stout actually punted the ball really well today. He had 4 punts inside the 20-yard line, long of 51 on the day. I thought this was Jordan's, maybe his best preseason game, just in terms of consistency from him. So, I thought the coverage on the punts was good as well. So shout out to Nick Moore. But yeah, I mean, Loop is someone that he's someone that the kicker expectations are high in Baltimore. We know that, from Justin Tucker to Matt Stover, Billy Cundiff before the whole Patriots thing happened, right? Like there is a level of excellence with the Ravens. And, in my opinion, Loop has the leg. He has the talent. Randy Brown knows his stuff, knows how to evaluate that talent. And, he said that Harbaugh said, quote, it's a confidence thing just to get out there in a game and be able, in that circumstance, and having done it one time like that, more than maybe he would have, is valuable. And it's true. Get the experience in the preseason, so you're not doing something for the first time when it matters. That's what the preseason is for a lot of these younger guys. And I'm glad that John Harbaugh took that approach with him. Coming up in the final part of the show, we'll round out other players who performed well in that Commanders game in week 3. Plus, we'll give my updated roster predictions. Not final, but updated. Stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. This episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything: cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? There's so much information online about mental health and wellness. It can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through Betterhelp can make all the difference. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. And therapy isn't just for navigating major challenges. It's also about building positive coping skills and learning how to set boundaries. Having a trusted professional can talk things through with can help cut through the noise and even keep you focused on what matters most. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedules. As a click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. So talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Moving right along here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still talking Ravens with you. Again, appreciate everybody for being here. We've built up such amazing communities on this show, whether it's audio form where we started out over 6 years ago, just a little over that. Video form, we moved into that a couple years later to go with the audio. Obviously, we have social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all Chaos Record 34. We've built up amazing communities. Their subtext is really cool as well. That community's been great. So everybody who supports me on this channel. It means the absolute world. And whether you are a video watcher or an audio listener, you can do the same. It's the same show. So if you maybe want to watch one day, listen another day, you can do that. And it's absolutely incredible. So thank you. Our goal, 14,000 subscribers before the season begins. We're about 100 away from doing that. So that'd be really, really awesome. But the Ravens, their goal is 53 by Tuesday. And it's not a goal. It is a requirement. You have to cut down your roster to that. On yesterday's bonus episode where we talked a lot of Micah Parsons and Baltimore and that whole 9 yards of all the events that happened on Friday, I also gave a game day of roster prediction. And I honestly think I did a pretty good job, but some things have changed for me. Now, there are a lot of different ways you can look at the roster and evaluate it. Right now I have the Ravens keeping 25 on offense, 25 on defense, and 3 on special teams. But I'd said, and I mentioned it, Keon Martin was a true bubble guy. He had a great preseason game on Saturday. Boom, he's moving up into that roster. If he didn't, well, he's still a good practice squad player for you. 7 corners is the name of the game for the Ravens here. Can they afford to keep 7 cornerbacks on their roster? You already have Marlon, Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, Jaire Alexander, Joby Awuzie, TJ Tampa, and Jalen Armour Davis. That's not even factoring in Ruben Lowry, who, a lot of people are now listing as a safety. But, regardless here, can the Ravens afford to keep a Keon Martin? Well, there'd be a couple of ways they could do it. Number one is they would cut David Ojabo. Ojabo had an up and down game, I would say. He had an offsides that negated a pretty nice TJ Tampa pass breakup, but then he also was unblocked again. And I don't understand why teams just don't want to block David Ojabo, but I'll take it. I know he'll take it. He took advantage. Now, he also was playing really late. I mentioned with Bo Braid, he was playing late in the game. Ojabo was also playing very late into the game, which in my opinion doesn't bode very well for his roster chances. The only thing with cutting Ojabo is 4 outside linebackers is kind of a tough situation there. Like that's probably 1 too little. You probably got to keep 5. What you could also do is you could cut John Jenkins and roll with 4 defensive linemen. Because I think that what you could do is Brent Urban, I think, is going to get a handshake deal here from the Ravens, and he'll be on the practice squad for the year. Jenkins, maybe you do the same thing. He's a veteran. You can do that type of thing with vets. My big brain play, and I said this on the squad show. I've been kind of formulating it a little bit here. I might have even mentioned it on the instant reaction show. Is that the Ravens will cut John Jenkins and cut David Ojabo. They will keep Keon Martin on the roster. And you say, wait, Kevin, that's 52 players. If we're going by that, you cut 2 but only keep 1. My big brain is that they then sign Jadeveon Clowney. And what you can do with Jadeveon Clowney is you can play him on the inside. And you can have him on your roster. John Jenkins and Brent Urban of the practice squad, along with CJ Okoye and CJ Ravenel is my dream. Those 4 on the practice squad would be awesome. I think that's the play. That's the play. You keep Keon Martin, you have 7 corners. You roll with 4 defensive linemen and 5 outside linebackers, but you can move Tavius Robinson to the inside. You can move Jadeveon Clowney to the inside. Those guys can play bigger. Now, they're not John Jenkins big, but you can call up a guy like John Jenkins. Like, you can make it work. You can absolutely make it work. That, to me, is like my big brain play. The thing that I realistically think happens if there were to be someone that is cut, it probably is Ojabo, and that would be probably the biggest surprise. Other names could include a guy like Jake Hummel, Ben Cleveland. I know people are talking about, but they need that depth there. I get that Cleveland wasn't impressive in this game, and it's just, I don't know why he's even back in Baltimore, but he is. They need the depth there. They don't have a Patrick McCary to throw out there anymore. So, it is what it is with that. I do think if there is a surprise cut, Hummel, Sanusi Kane, David Ojabo, I think Kane's probably staying, though. I think Kane's probably staying. I'd rather take the chances. And again, it's not a guarantee that everyone, like if they end up moving on from Okoye, Ravenel, Keon Martin, like, you take your chances. I think Martin might get claimed, but that'd be tough. But it's just, you got to figure out elsewhere. That's why I think for a veteran like a John Jenkins, there's a much lower chance that he would go somewhere else. Like, if you can work out that handshake deal and say, hey, we're going to cut you, but you're going to come back on the practice squad, going to have a role this season, we'll call you up for those games, and then you can keep a guy like Keon Martin, I would do it. I think Keon Martin absolutely earned a spot. He deserves a spot. I'd be pretty bummed out if he doesn't get a spot. So hopefully the Ravens can make that happen for him. But lots of tough decisions. We'll be continuing to dive in. My official roster prediction just for now, it's not my final one, but I have 2 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Cooper Rush, 4 running backs, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, Rasheen Ali, 1 fullback in Rashod, 6 wide receivers, Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Tez Walker, Tylan Wallace, and LeJohntay Wester, the 3 tight ends, Andrews, Likely, and Kohler, 9 offensive linemen, Stanley Voorhees, Linderbaum, Falele, Rosengarten, Bullock, Vincent, Cleveland, Noteboom. I'll go 4 defensive linemen, Matabike, Jones, Washington, Peebles. I will go 5 outside linebackers, Owe, Van Noy, Robinson, Green, and Ajabo. I'll keep Ajabo on there for now. I will do 5 inside linebackers, Smith, Simpson, Buchanan, Hummel, Higgins. 7 corners, Humphrey, Wiggins, Alexander, Wouzier, Tampa, Armour Davis, and Martin. 4 safeties, Hamilton, Starks, Kane, Lowry. 3 special teamers, Loop, Stout, and more than the 2 designated for IR. That's a new thing this year you can do. You can designate 2 from IR. When the 53-man cut down happens, my 2 are Emory Jones and Adisa Isaac. So not my final one. I'll get to my final one over the course of the early portion of the week as we continue to dive into all the latest news and notes from the Ravens cut down decisions. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more daily Ravens coverage. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow with our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.